Hello everybody, Mr. Mobs here and welcome back to the channel. So today we're recording a very special video to celebrate reaching the goal of 200 subscribers. We've actually reached that goal fairly quickly, a lot quicker than I expected us to. So massive thank you to everyone who has supported the channel so far. Like I say in all my previous videos, don't do it for any sort of financial gain. I'll just do it for the love of VR. So all your likes, comments, subscribes is really appreciated. The next goal is going to be 500 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, then please consider doing so. Today's topic is going to be about Nintendo and Nintendo's place in the VR market. We'll look at Nintendo's past, present, and future. The reason I've chosen this topic is, as you can see behind me, I've got quite a large Nintendo collection. I'm a Nintendo fan. I'm also a massive fan of VR and all things VR, as you probably know from the channel. So I really wanted to cover like the topic and kind of amalgamate the two together and discuss my feelings on Nintendo and if they have a future in VR. So I hope you really enjoy the video, and like I say, if you haven't already subscribed, please do to support the channel. Thank you. Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. So Nintendo has some past history with virtual reality. Well, kind of anyway. So they released a product called the Virtual Boy, which was released in 1995. So that's way back in the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation kind of time. Now it was only released in the US and Japan. Um, and never in Europe, and it was kind of cancelled fairly quickly. In fact, in Japan, I think it was cancelled, it was discontinued the same year, so 1995, and then in the US in 1996. So as a result, there was only a total of, I think, 22 games in total released for the machine, 14 of which were released in the US. Now, the reason that it was discontinued was well, there's kind of several reasons. So according to Google, in total there was 770,000 units sold, which when you compare it to the Game Boy, which sold 40 million, you can see there's quite a difference there. Now there's quite a lot of bad publicity around this machine, and some of it for good reason and some of it perhaps not. So, any of you that are not familiar with a Virtual Boy, I'll try and put some video and some pictures on screen, but it's basically like a fixed headset that sits on a table, and it's got red and black screens. So there's no color, it's just red and black. Well, red is a color, but a single color, then red and black. Now, the reason that they decided to have it sitting on a table like on a pair of legs rather than it being strapped to your face is they were worried about health and safety. If you had something strapped to your face and you move around, you're not going to be aware of your surroundings. Obviously, they didn't have the cameras pass through things like that, like we do on the Quest. So Nintendo decided to make it like a static machine that you stick on your face, but on the table. So that was the first thing there. Um, the reason for the red and black and not for the color screens was to try and keep the cost down. So they wanted to try and make it accessible for everyone. So they felt that just by having a red and black screen that would keep the cost down, make it accessible for everyone. Now the problem with this, there's a couple of things here, is it was very hard for them to put across the 3D effect that you got when you use the machine. It was like a stereoscopic 3D effect. So it's kind of similar to what you'd see on a 3DS. So in all the adverts, and that was very few adverts because there was not that many games, but it was very hard for them to show the 3D effect off to its true effect. So straight away, there's a kind of blocker there. Um, the other problem is they had a lot of complaints about people having eye strain and getting headaches and stuff like that. And so they ended up in the US. I don't know about Japan, but in the US they had to put like a warning label on the box saying that it could only be played by people over a certain age and possibly for a certain amount of time. I can't remember the exact warning, but it did end up coming with like a health warning, and that was mainly as like a precaution by Nintendo, so they didn't end up getting sued. Um, but as a result, that sends a really negative message about this kind of new product that they're trying to sell. And I guess it's a little bit similar. There's a bit of a kind of ongoing debate with people about um, younger people using VR and the possible consequences to that. and it's very split opinion. I'm on lots of different VR groups on Facebook and the likes, and there's people that say no, my kids use it absolutely fine, no bother, and there's other people that say strictly should not be for kids. So I'm not going to get into that debate at all. Um, but yeah, when it comes to the Virtual Boy, it did mean that there was issues there. So straight away they're kind of restricting the sort of the amount of people that they're selling it to, and so yeah, it really didn't go off to a very good start. They did have to rush it out the door as well. So they wanted all their developers to start concentrating on the Nintendo 64, which they wanted to release. So the whole thing got rushed, and as a result, it kind of flopped pretty big. Um, Now I quite like the console. I've got one behind me, like you see. I've played it for long periods of time. It's never given me a headache. Perhaps do get a bit of neck ache because you kind of have to bend down at the table to use it. Um, but yeah, I don't really think personally, I think there's a lot of kind of stigma behind the machine, and there's a lot of people who've never used it before that will instantly, as soon as they see something online about it, is oh yeah, give you headaches, blah blah blah, and they've never tried it themselves. So I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it's a similar sort of thing to the Quest. You use the Quest, and some people get motion sickness. Well, you know, if enough people say that, then it becomes a bad thing. When actually a lot of people have a positive experience using the Quest. Okay, the Virtual Boy is probably not quite the same. The quality of games on there definitely isn't up to par. Like I said, they've got 22 games. Some of them are really sketchy games. There are a couple that I would like to mention of my kind of personal favourites. So one of them is a Wario game. It's called Virtual Boy Wario Land. Very original. That's like a side-scrolling well, like a Wario game like you'd expect, but it's quite good because you jump into the background and then go back into the foreground and things like that, which I know is kind of commonplace with games now, like Donkey Kong Country, I think on the Wii, and on the Wii U they do that, but I think this is back in 1995, so that works quite well back then. Another one is Galactic Pinball. That uses the 3D effect quite well, and it's quite a basic kind of pinball style game. But I do quite enjoy playing that, and I think it kind of reminds me of the old pinball game that used to get packed in with one of the Windows. It might have been Windows 95, I'm not sure. But I do enjoy a good pinball game anyway. So Galactic Pinball, that's quite fun to play and try and beat your high scores. And then there's another one that wasn't an official release. It's called Hyper Fighting, and basically it's like a clone of Street Fighter 2, and a really good clone. So it's like a homebrew project, um, and it works really well. Now it's actually, or it was quite difficult to get hold of. They made cartridges to get to play on the old Virtual Boy, but there's only so many made, and because it's a clone of Street Fighter, it's probably not technically legal for them to do that. So it's quite hard to get hold of those cartridges, and they were selling for silly money. There is a like a flash cartridge that's since been made called Hyper Flash 32, and because it's got quite a large storage size, you can fit that ROM on there and you can play it that way. So it has become more accessible. Um, but yeah, that's definitely worth a mention there. Now, because there's only 22 Virtual Game Boy games ever made. I mean, there's lots now. There's lots of homebrew titles, I should add, but only 22 official ones. Some of those games do hold a pretty hefty price tag. One of them being Jack Brothers, which is in America. It was, I think, one of the last games made. So that one holds quite a hefty price tag, and there's a few other kind of Japanese titles as well. So you might need to sell a kidney or remortgage your house if you want to get a complete collection. So anyway, yeah, Virtual Boy is definitely is something that I'm quite fond of, but I appreciate there's a lot of reasons why it didn't work. So that was Nintendo's first, I guess, look at um, a virtual reality console. Although you could argue it's not really virtual reality; it's more of a 3D console, but it's got virtual on the name, so let's include it anyway. So that brings us to present day. So it's now possible to play the complete library of Virtual Boy games on any of the Quest headsets, including the well, it's called the Oculus Go, which I guess is part of the Quest line. I don't know, maybe not. But yeah, you can play it on any of the Quest headsets using a app called Virtual Boy Go. You do have to sideload this app, so you'll need to use SideQuest. There's plenty of videos online that will instruct you through the process of how to use SideQuest, so I won't go into that on this particular video. But basically, this is an emulator specifically for the Virtual Boy, and in my opinion, at the moment, is probably one of the best ways to play Virtual Boy games. So even though I've got one in the background and I enjoy playing on original hardware, it's probably more comfortable playing in my Quest, and you can even use the Quest 3. Obviously, the screens are nice and bright, it's still red and black, but it's just everything's nice and crisp, and you don't have to kind of hunch down or anything like that. So that's kind of my favorite way to um, play the games now. It was originally created, I believe, for the Oculus Go, which is why it's called Virtual Boy Go, I believe. But yeah, it's definitely worth having a look at. What I would say is I don't condone the use of emulators, and it's definitely a grey area, especially with the ROMs. So unless you own physical copies of the games like I do here, then certainly don't be playing illegal copies, because that's not good and you'll get told off. So just want to kind of point that one out. But yeah, so in fact, all the footage that's been captured for this video, the Virtual Boy footage, has been done on a Quest 3 using that emulator. So just to say, little note on that one. But yeah, anyway, other kind of present day offerings of virtual reality with Nintendo, is one of them probably a bit laughable, but is Nintendo Labo, which again a lot of you probably are aware of. So it's the cardboard offering of kind of different things that you put together for the Nintendo Switch, and they did a VR style headset, which basically you make out of cardboard, you insert the Nintendo Switch screen into the top and strap it to your face. Now, for this video, I thought I'd do a little bit of research to see what games were compatible with the Nintendo Labo VR kit, or Nintendo Labo VR, and I was actually quite surprised to see there was 12 games listed. So I didn't think there was going to be that many at all. So let me list them out for you. So the first one being the kind of packing game that you get with it, which is called VR Kit, or Nintendo Labo VR Kit. But then you've got Spice and Wolf VR. Then you've got Reflex Unit 2. Then you've got Demo Reborn. I don't know if I've pronounced that right. Then you've got Neon Wall. Uh, Rooms, The Adventure of Anne and George. Um, The Night of the Seven Queens. Laid Back Camp. That sounds a bit interesting. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, believe it or not. Super Mario Odyssey, again, believe it or not. Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, which I was quite surprised. I didn't realise Smash Brothers either. So I've not tried any of these. I've never tried the Labo VR, and actually I did have a quick look to see if I could pick one up super cheap for this video, because I thought it'd be nice to kind of show a little bit of me playing that. But they're still quite expensive, and I don't get paid for these videos, so I decided to skip that one. But I would be quite interested to try a few of these out. So if any of you guys have tried Nintendo Labo VR, I haven't got high hopes, but I'd be interested to know what you guys thought. So if any of you have, please put a comment in the comment section so we can discuss that one. Also, it's probably worth mentioning there are some third party accessories that you can buy which I guess are to replace the cardboard headset with something a bit more substantial. So you can go on Amazon, and if you type in Nintendo Switch VR, you'll see that there's a number of third-party kind of headsets. The same principle. You slide the Switch screen in, stick it on your head. So yeah, there are third-party sellers doing that, and I assume that the majority of these games you could play using that accessory, probably with the exception of the Nintendo VR kit. With the Nintendo VR kit, it comes with several other things that you make. If I remember, there's like a bird, there's a bazooka, and stuff like that. So um, that probably wouldn't work so well, but the rest of them, I guess, would work okay. So again, that's kind of Nintendo's current day dabble with VR. Probably wasn't a particularly serious dabble, but um, okay. So let's talk about the future of Nintendo and the possibility of VR and their usage of. So the Nintendo Switch 2 is on the horizon. We are all calling it the Nintendo Switch 2. No one knows the name or anything about the project yet. Um, a guess would be that because the Switch has done so well, that they continue along the same sort of hybrid theme. But no one knows with Nintendo. They could throw everything out the window and do something totally different. We also know that Nintendo like to try things completely different that aren't necessarily things that have been tried before. So if you look at the Wii and the motion controls, that was a fairly unique feature at the time. So they're not scared of trying to do something different. However, it's likely that the new Nintendo console will be a form of Switch, but perhaps a like a higher res version with a better screen, that type of thing. They may well stick some cameras on it. Now, there is a possibility here, and it's only a very small possibility, but they may well have another look at VR and do something perhaps a little bit more serious than the Labo, and possibly something similar to what Pimax has done with one of their products called the Pimax Portal. Now, again, I'll try and show a few images on screen of the Pimax Portal, but in effect, what you're looking at is a very similar sort of idea. It's a portable handheld product which slots into a specially designed VR headset with like a higher kind of resolution screen to be able to play in VR. Now, obviously, if the Switch 2 is a higher res screen than the original Switch and a higher refresh rate, then they potentially could achieve a VR effect that would be convincing enough and perhaps not have or not give you motion sickness. Um, Now, I don't think Nintendo would fully invest in VR, so I don't think they would bring out just a VR console that was specifically just for that purpose. Um, One of the reasons being is Nintendo, one of their kind of company like not mottos, but one of the directions of the company is they like to bring people together to play together. Okay, and VR is a little bit kind of doesn't really suit that kind of mold very well because you're sticking on a VR headset. Now, although you've got multiplayer games, which is great and they're really good fun to play, it does kind of alienate you from everyone in the room. And there are some titles that are exceptions to that, which I understand. But in general, you've got this VR headset on. You can't really play with anyone else who's around you, and it kind of completely cuts you off from everyone else in the room. So Nintendo would have to do something that would involve other people. Perhaps they could have it so it links up wirelessly with other headsets, but then you've got the whole thing of people hitting each other by accident and all the health and safety issues there. Also, Nintendo, as everyone probably knows, when it comes to their online solutions, they don't want people talking to strangers online. So they want to make everything like a family friendly place. Anyone who's been on Call of Duty and all kinds of like, if you remember the old Xbox days when you used to play Halo online and the sort of things that you hear on there, Nintendo doesn't want any of that. So whatever they did, if they did do a just a headset, and it had online functionality, they'd have to somehow make it so it was kind of family friendly, because that's what they've done. So unless they're going to take a massive U-turn on things, I think it's highly unlikely at this stage that the next piece of hardware out or anytime soon would be a VR headset. It might have some sort of VR functionality, like I've explained, but I don't think it's going to be a headset. But it's a shame because there's a few games in particular, lots of Nintendo IPs would really suit VR. Now, in particular, Mario Kart. Yeah, everyone loves Mario Kart, or the majority of people, so that'd be wicked driving around in VR or mixed reality. So if you remember, or some of you might know, that Nintendo released a radio controlled car that connected to the Switch, and it had a camera on, and it was like a mixed reality. So you were driving around, you could see on the Switch driving around your living room, but there were things that were on the Switch that weren't in your living room. So it's a mixed reality solution, and that was quite fun, although very gimmicky. Um, Mario 3D World, obvious reasons, a bit like I've explained for the Wario game on the Virtual Boy. Mario 3D World would make quite good use of a VR headset. Another mixed reality title, or something that could be made into mixed reality, is Pikmin. You guys might not be familiar with Pikmin, but that one would actually be really cool to be able to implement that and play that in your living room or your surroundings. So they're just a couple of examples there. I'm sure there's quite a few others, and if you guys can think of any, stick it in the comments. Again, we can discuss that. But yeah, there's definitely loads of Nintendo IPs that would really suit virtual reality. Now, the reason I made this video is it's something that's been on my mind for quite a while. I would really love Nintendo to get into the virtual reality scene properly. Honestly, do I think it's going to happen, or are they going to do it to the level that I would like? Probably not, or not for a long time. I know they've implemented it in their Mario Kart ride, I think in Universal Studios or whatever it is, Disneyland, I don't know, but I don't think they would release a standalone console. It wouldn't be their main console. So maybe they might have a Switch, and like they used to do the home console and then a Game Boy or a DS or whatever, perhaps they might do a sideline of virtual reality. Um, but yeah, I'd love it. And there's loads of cool apps that they could do on it, but knowing Nintendo, everything that people want them to do, they never do. So who knows? Who knows? Anyway, that's come to the end of the video. I hope you've really enjoyed it. It's been quite a fun one making. Like I said, I really do enjoy Nintendo and everything related to Nintendo and VR. So I've had quite a good fun doing it. I'm glad I've had the opportunity. Like I said at the beginning of the video, please, if you haven't already subscribed, please do so. Let's try and hit that 500 mark. And thank you all for watching. Cheers. Bye bye.